Welcome, welcome to another exciting edition of the Torah Watchman series, where we broke the century mark. We're at 101 videos, going back more than 2 years now. Quite an accomplishment when you consider how time flies when you're having fun and learning so much. Why, when you learn something new about what God is trying to tell you, why keep it to yourself? And that's what I'm all about. The Torah Watchman means I'm watching out for you. I'm the Lord's watchman. Every Jewish man who's observant, worth of snuff, should be a watchman out for the Torah. We are Torah defenders, right? Not Torah terrorists. The title of this Torah edition in Yara Ben-Emmett's YouTube channel, click like, click subscribe, and personal notify. The title of this edition series is, why did God created Mormons so that Christians know how Jews feel. Let me repeat that. God created Mormons so that Christians know how Jews feel. Now just think about what I just said. Let me add a little bit icing to that cake, okay? Everything in the Jewish Bible here, that's considered old by most Christians that I know, old, is true. Okay? It's a closed canon. There's no more prophets that's adding another chapter, another book to this, okay? This used to be a series of dozens and dozens of scrolls and other parchments, okay? Now, this is a Christian Bible. This is New King James Version. If the King James Version wasn't sufficient, you have a New King James Version for contemporary-minded evangelicals in the 21st century. But anyway, anything new in this book, the New Testament, is not true. Why am I saying that? Folks, chicken and the egg, okay? You cannot have this without this. It's that simple. This is the oldest and most accurate, most accredited works on the planet, pretty much. Okay, even the Quran, the Muslim Quran, their holy book, it's based a lot here. Moshe, the word of Moses, my prophet of blessed memory, it's mentioned in the Quran more times than Muhammad. Yes, yes. A lot in the Quran is taken from the Jewish Bible. Some of the New Testament here is also borrowed in the Quran as well. Muhammad understood Roman Catholicism during his time, and that was around 600 CE, more or less, when the dawn of Islam. But where I'm going is here, the chicken and the egg, is that, this can be true here, while this can be false. The other way does not apply. This cannot be true here, without this. It's yin and yang, okay? There's a dependency relationship here, okay? So if this is a chicken, this is an egg, you may call it a dud or whatever, but still, this came from this. So if you have a debate in theological circles and discussions about who said what they meant to say, how does it apply to the 21st century, if you get into all these debates, and we love to debate as human beings, right? It doesn't matter where you come from, who you are, and throughout the planet, we get into politics. We say we don't like political things, but the Jewish Bible is all about politics. Yeah, when you deal with foreign nations, read about in 1st and 2nd Kings about King Solomon, his business relationships with other nations was very political. But anyway, where I'm going is here, I'm going to give you a summary of several other videos I made in the past. This is coming back to my mind. Why is this important to me today more than, say, last week this time? Okay? I already made a video about One for Israel ministry, okay? It's an evangelical Christian ministry in Israel, specifically in Jerusalem, the sole purpose and mission statement is to go out and convert Jews to Christianity, or it's a recommended variant of that. Okay, you have people that actually wear beards like this, wear kippas, wear talit, prayer shawls and things of that nature. They emulate what it looks to be Jewish and most people's Webster's Dictionary context of that, but it's fake, folks. Okay, and listen, I don't want to offend anyone here. I have a large target audience here. It's growing every week. I appeal to no-hides. Ramban talks about the no-hide laws, the 7 no-hide laws. No-hide goes back to our prophet Noah, Noah's Ark and his sons and everything else, how God worked with him, and a prototype to the Torah, which is known as the no-hide laws. Essentially, these are people that are not born Jewish, but they feel Jewish inside and feel drawn to the Jewish way of life. Okay? God bless these people. These people used to be Christian, used to be Buddhist, all kinds of faith and religions, and we're all welcome them, okay? What's different about, between Christians and Jews, we don't go out and evangelize people, okay? We don't force baptize people to be Jewish. Even though converts into Judaism, that's part of a tradition, they dip in the mikvah in a body of water, completely immersion, and we say a prayer over them and that conversion ceremony to literally be reborn into the Jewish nation versus where they came from. Okay, the so-called baptism and all this, again, those terms were borrowed from Judaism, from the Bible. The Jewish Bible here was borrowed from that and is adopted and changed around a lot through Roman Catholicism. Baptismo is a Greek word. I can go to 1,000 different tangents, but let me keep this in scope, okay? First of all, we're talking about the final rule of arbitration. The single source of truth, folks, is this Jewish Bible, okay? This is written in the same ancient Hebrew as you would find in the great Torah Dead Sea Scroll that's currently on display in Jerusalem. It was discovered in 1947. It's in its entirety. It's the entire Torah Scroll. All 66 chapters in Isaiah, Yesaiah. Chapters are artificial devices that were created by a bishop just for user-friendliness and, categorization. And that's just how the human brain filing system works. And it actually makes sense to me as a Jew, too. I mean, since we have a book and it's canonized like this, and it have a binder and has a table of contents and is differentiated in different named or numerated books in here, it makes sense to have other breakouts called chapters too. It just makes sense, okay? It is what it is. But all I'm saying is this Torah Scroll, Isaiah Torah Scroll, and I said before we had these books here, before these books had binders and all of this, it was papyrus, folks, which is a plant-based product or whatever they used. That's what they used for paper back then, before they started using wood and other things like that. Wood fibers and stuff. But anyway, it is, get this, it is at least 2,100 years old, okay? It goes back to the time of nearly Judah Maccabee, the time of Alexander the Great. Okay, it survived, pretty much petrified in a cave along the Dead Sea. I think an Arab boy or whatever found it. I'm not sure. But anyway, what I'm saying is the ancient Hebrew within that is 99.99% identical to the book of Isaiah, Yesaiah in here. Okay, so listen, the astuteness of the integrity of God's word in the Jewish Bible, the Tanakh here, which means essentially the 5 books of the Torah and everything else that you would find in the Old Testament, okay, is in here. That complete Bible, Basheret, going out to the 5 books of the Torah, which is the books of Moshe, the major and minor prophets, the judges, sacred writings, things like Lamentations and other writings in there as well. the book of Tehillim, the Psalms, and all of this. It's in here. It's all in Hebrew. Okay. Okay. So where I'm getting at, you have these Jewish evangelists that's going out. Okay. It's Christianity. Okay. You can easily recognize them when Israel. They may look Jewish, but they have a little fish. You know, they have a little fish. They have a Making David like this, but it has a little fish or cross or something in the middle there. Okay. This is just marketing. That's what it is. It makes them feel good. God bless them. You see that, and so they take branding and Jewish symbols and things like that, and then they remarket them as what they want to sell to other people. It's all about adoption. When you in sales and marketing, a lot of people have sales and marketing degrees and things of that nature, and you try to sell something new to someone or sell something old, rebrand it, repaint it, remarket it, or whatever, in a different color jar of something, whatever. You want adoption, right? What do you need to do to sell your product and get it to be adopted by your target market? Listen, in 21st century, they do all kinds of things. Jews for Jesus, for instance, has literally a manual on how to convert Jews over to their variant. They call it Judaism, but it's actually Messianic Judaism. It's Christianity, folks. Okay, just like Mormons is a denominational construct of Christianity. Jehovah's Witnesses, Watchtower tracts and Watchtower Society and all this stuff, that is another denomination of Christianity. Okay, it is what it is. They have different interpretations of this Jewish Bible. The Book of Mormon, for instance, is completely different than this. Only takes a little bit of this, a skeletal framework, and then it puts in all the meat and the bones with other things that Joseph Smith said he'd received from the angel and everything else. I'm going to get into that. But in the context, user context here of Christians evangelizing Jews to convert them over to Christianity, this is where I have a problem. And why do Jews have a problem with Christians putting a gospel tract on my door? Okay? Why do I have a problem in turning on my radio and I hear on multiple channels on how I'm going to hell unless I believe in a man God, human sacrifice for my sins? Okay? And when I read this in Hebrew, there's nothing in here about that storyline, that narrative. But it is refactored in this New Testament. New, I guess, means better than something that's old. Anyway, I'm old school, so I like old things. But where I'm going is, folks, believe it or not, in evangelizing Jews, listen, I respect Christians as much as I respect Buddhists, as much as I respect Muslims, okay? And to each their own, right? Whatever makes them happy and whatever makes them fulfilled. But all Jews like myself ask from our Christian neighbors is to be left alone, okay? You want me to respect you for your belief, okay, right? We may have very hotly debated arguments over theological constructs and Christologies versus Mosheologies and other things like this. But at the end of the day, I'm not grabbing someone and dragging them away and dunking them in a bathtub and saying in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, you know, you're a Christian now, okay? Muslims convert people. You can read about it in the history. I don't want to get into that. Ramban had a big problem with that. That's why he fled for his life out of Spain and went to Africa, everywhere, Turkey, everywhere, Israel, running away from Muslims that were threatening to kill him if he didn't convert. Okay? Listen, given all the history here between Christians and Jews, namely Roman Catholics, okay? Roman Catholics, 1,500 years of torture, molestation, forced conversion, burning to the stake, having appendages cut off of you, all kinds of things, imprisonment, and all of these things like that. You would think that at this time in the 21st century of a more enlightened age, that the Christians would let bygone be bygone. They would wash their hands. Say, hey, there was blood on my ancestors' hands here. The great crusaders, you know, they did a lot of horrific things in the name of Jesus. I don't believe it. I don't support that. I don't support that. So I'm going to leave the Jews alone, okay? They're the chosen people of God. Even Pope Francis said that. He said they don't need to be baptized because they're the chosen people of God, okay? I don't know what to say about that. His sincerity is in question. But after all these years, that more than 1,000 years of Roman Catholic expulsions from Europe, the 1492 expulsion from all the Jews in Spain, okay? The expulsion of Jews out of England. And by 1600, there were no Jews at all in what's today Great Britain or England proper. No, in the 1600s. That's when the King James Version Bible was written and canonized and put together, without even one single rabbi or other Jewish opinion to vet this. Peer review, you know, peer review. In college, you have peer review papers when you write. You better peer review stuff if you want an A. I've been through that. But what I'm saying is, you know, I've talked to pastors about this, okay? I tell them, I have videos about Martin Luther. This is not Dr. Martin Luther Jr., MLK. That's not who I'm talking about. I'm talking Martin Luther in the 1500s. Okay? I already did a video about this. You can go to ben-Emmett and look it up. Also, John Calvin, too. If you go to Moody Bible Institute or Dallas Theological Seminary, if you want to be something about its minister or evangelist or whatever, you will be schooled in sermons and other writings and research papers, whatever, that Martin Luther and Mr. Calvin wrote. I don't want to get into details about who these people were, but in the 1500s, that's when they lived, and there was essentially contemporaries of one another, almost, within 50, 100 years, whatever. What I'm saying is that they were rabid anti-Semites, even during that time. So you have Christian pastors, Assembly of God pastors today, that will preach a sermon borrowed from Martin Luther or John Calvin. John Calvin actually murdered the individual, the doctor who discovered pulmonary cardio circulatory system. Yes, he burned him to the stake in ISIS-style murder. Why? He was a Christian, but he was not a Trinitarian. If you were not a Trinitarian, and Christians actually killed each other based on Trinitarian. Okay, read the Nicene Creed. Emperor Constantine, codified that agreement among more than a dozen bishops in Nicaea in around 585 CE, okay? That Nicene Creed, incidentally, is the constitution for every single Protestant denomination you can think of today, okay? Every one of them. If you look up what we believe, and you read that, and you read the Nicene Creed about the Trinitarian belief and all of this stuff, with a single exception of Unitarians. I don't want to get into all of that. But where I'm going is, after all the abuses against the Jewish people, and no one has knocked on my door and said, Keith, I respect your Jewish family. Welcome to the neighborhood. By the way, I found out on Ancestry.com that my ancestors were in the Crusades, or they were Roman Catholics, and then, they murdered Jews. Okay. No one's apologized to me. I'm not asking for reparations. I'm not asking for a new affirmative action law in this country because of Christian persecution in the past, because my ancestors were in prison in slavery for more than 400 years in Egypt. I'm not asking the Egyptian president now to tear down those pyramids because they make me feel bad. No Jew is apologizing for their history. No Jew is asking for handouts or welfare. All we're asking is that you respect the single source of truth. If you're a Christian and you acknowledge this is your truth, even though it's probably more Roman Catholic oral tradition. Yeah, Christians hate the word oral tradition, the Talmud. they are Christians that swear by this. Their pastors even preach from the books of Moshe. They'll preach about Samson, the judge, and everything else, who grew out his hair, and Delilah, and all these stories, and Joshua, who stopped time, to fight the Canaanites, in ancient Israel. Ezekiel and all these stories, Moses parted Red Sea. Listen, they're in Bible school and everything else in every church you can think of. They're coloring books of this, whatever. I'm glad they appreciate this. I'm glad they teach this to their children, okay? It's good. But at some point, for most Christians, this is their single truth. This is single arbitration of truth. Many people, if they have an Old Testament or a separate book other than the epistles of Paul, the 4 Gospels, book of Revelations, and things of that nature, the Old Testament is seldom even looked at. Now, there are some churches that are going back to the Old Testament and relearning that because they say Jesus was a Jew. He wasn't a Palestinian. And they say, if Jesus was a Jew, he's raised Jewish, he probably raised Orthodox Jews. I want to know how it is for Jesus to be Jewish. That would make sense. But in conclusion, if you are a Christian and you have a sole purpose in life to go out and evangelize Jews, Jews for Jesus, you want to join them, go to their Messianic synagogues, which essentially is a type of church. It kind of Reformed Judaism is what it is. It's all interfaith and everything else. They may swear that they say, oh, I love matzah, but when they go to their other friend, George across the street, he's grilling a nice big thing, Chicago pork spare ribs, and he said, oh, that's just so delicious to eat all those spare ribs. So they say, I am kosher when I'm with my Jewish friends that are acting Jewish. I mean, they're not quite Jewish, but, I respect that. So I'll eat their matzah. But I'll go with my other friends there, and I'll eat pork and other things like that would be pretty much disgusting and revolting to Jews if you brought pork chops over to your Jewish friend's house. That showed disrespect. This is how Paul did it. I am a Jew for all people. I'm a Gentile for all people, to each their own and whatever. Very deceptive advertising and things of that nature. The framework of the New Testament is not what you think, folks. If you're a Christian, listen here. Please don't be offended. And Jews, there's a lot. I know about this because I had it in university. I had training in both Old Testament survey, New Testament survey. I learned all of this stuff a long time ago, okay? My wife does not know about it, and she doesn't want to know about it, and that's how a lot of Jews are. They don't know much of anything that's in this New Testament. But this has been weaponized by groups like Jews for Jesus and One for Israel, weaponized to use against the Jewish people. There's even the King James Bible, per se, is written in Hebrew for the Jewish audience in Jerusalem to be able to convert them more effectively. So when they write in Hebrew, they know that Jews respect the Hebrew language above any other language because it's the angelic tongue. It's a perfect tongue. So I already told you about the Dead Sea Scroll, the Isaiah Scroll. All the archaeological digs, finding more parchments, more things to validate all of this. All the cities, even the ancient Canaanite cities. I saw something recently with King Solomon's territory, how it reached all the way to the Euphrates River, up in Lebanon, all the way down to the Sinai Peninsula. There's proof of that. There's more proof of this here than this here, okay? But this is beneficial because it has, 2,000 years ago, it has some Jewish history of what happened in Jerusalem during that time. So writings of Josephus and all of this, when you combine this, it's interesting. It's beautiful stories in here. But where I'm getting at, and I'm bringing this home, folks, giving all this information to you, the way this is broken out, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and it goes into the writings, the epistles of Paul. I already told you that this is the oldest work here as far as manuscripts and things of that nature. This was written here before this was written. The writings of Paul, the epistles, were primarily written to churches in Asia Minor, in Greece, Hellenistic people, polytheistic people. Did you know that the writings of Paul were written around 55 CE? okay? And not time frame. Only 7 out of 15 of those letters have been authenticated today as authentically written by Paul, okay? The others are written by other people, okay? Maybe people that lived or trained by Paul's apprentices, like Timothy or whatever, finished writing these letters only in the name of Paul. But the Catholic Church says all of them are written by Paul. But again, you have to go with science and the way we fact check things. You know, we fact check everything the president says. This is fiction, this is fact, and everything else. We do that. We fact check this here, and many atheists try to disprove this, but they actually are converted to understand that Jews are really know what they're talking about here when they research this, you know, because God holds their back. But the writings of Paul, the epistles, actually came before the 4 Gospels. Did you know that? So if you were following a Christological narrative, okay, beginning to end, that kind of thing, the story of Jesus, you know, born in Bethlehem, born in Nazareth. Was he Nazarene? People refer to him as Nazarene. There's a group of early Christians in the first century who called them the Nazarenes. Why? Because they believe Jesus was born in Nazareth. The 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, were written much later, okay, around 65, 67 CE, right before the destruction of King Herod's temple, the second temple in Jerusalem by Titus. The book of Mark was written. Yes, the book of Mark was written. It's relatively small compared to the other books, and it began when Jesus was a grown man and all this. No Bethlehem story, no virgin birth story, none of that, okay? And then gradually later after that, I don't know, maybe, I would say maybe 30 more years, you found Matthew and Luke. And John is the oldest, the current one is around 90 CE. Yes, almost at the turn of the millennium. So where I'm going is that Mark was written first. There was no virgin birth narrative. If this was the oldest manuscript, would you more be likely to trust that first before you trust Matthew? And Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are written by anonymous authors. To this day, we don't know who authored those works. Now, Roman Catholicism, the bishops and popes have said it's tradition that Matthew wrote Matthew. It's tradition John wrote John, that Mark wrote Mark, and Luke wrote Luke. Incidentally, the author of Luke is probably the same author that wrote Acts. Yeah, the Acts. But where I'm going is, if chronological order of who wrote what first, if these were witnesses, testimonials, maybe live witnesses to the disciples when Jesus was on the earth and ministering to people in Galilee and all this, when you listen to that first testimony before you listen to the second and third and fourth and fifth and sixth and so on, wouldn't that make sense? Did you know that Matthew and Luke were literally built as a copy and paste? Think about Microsoft Word. They took Mark and did a data dump in Matthew. They took Mark and did a data dump in Luke. And then built a virgin birth narrative in the beginning and then the passion narrative at the end. The book of Mark, the last 12 verses that we read in the book of Mark today, I think chapter 16 or something like that, was added much later by a bishop of the Roman Catholic Church. Honestly, true. That is true. There's a Sinai Bible. I think it was discovered in 1947. I'm not sure. The oldest canonized Bible in existence. It was a priceless treasure. I think it was stolen in Turkey, whatever. It was eventually found. I'm not sure of the story. You can look it up. But anyway, what I'm saying is the story of Jesus, for instance, of the adulterous woman, you know, he was the first, who is without sin cast the first stone to kill the adulterous woman. You can read, you can look at the Passion of the Christ, Mel Gibson, you know, all that stuff was built from that story. That story was not in the original books. It was added later on. John 5, and I'm doing this by memory, John 5, 1 through 6, something like that. You can read that. The Trinitarian language in there was added much later in the book of John. Seriously, folks. So if you're looking at chronological timelines here, the oldest manuscript to the newest manuscript, if you were going to put this book together, New Testament together correctly and chronologically, if you want to talk about a timeline and a story of people that were born before other people lived and other things like that, you would have the writings of Paul, the Pauline epistles first. Then you would have Mark, and then Matthew, Luke. You would have Acts, and then you would have John after that, because that was around 90, 95 CE, much later, okay? And then you would have the book of Revelations and things of that after that. The thing is that believing something is divine, and any Christian you talk to, especially fresh out of seminary, they will tell you this is the divine word of God. They'll tell you that with all heart and sincerity. Folks, the only thing divine in here would be if it was word for word from this book. Okay? Remember, nothing new here is true. Everything old is true, has been vetted, and been peer-reviewed for thousands of years, okay? So, if you are evangelists out there and you're thinking about evangelizing a Jew, be honest, okay? First of all, apologize for the atrocities of the Roman Catholic Church. Apologize for Martin Luther and John Calvin. Apologize for the Nicene Creed, that was written by the Emperor Constantine that hated Jews. He changed Sabbath to Sunday, folks. Yes, he really did. Yeah, he did that. He also forbade circumcision and other things like that in Jerusalem too. He also, incidentally, had the same vision that Paul did on the road to Damascus. He had the same vision of Christ too. It led him to victory in his battles, against the evil pagans of his time. And he was instantly born of a virgin too. He was a demigod, like most Caesars and emperors of that time. You can read this. Listen, don't shoot the messenger. You can read this. So the idea of virgin birth, demigod, born of a virgin woman, a divine seeding of a woman, and all this apart from a human father. This is not new stuff before this Bible was written. This is all Hellenistic doctrine. And as far as stories of a chaotic heaven and God fighting Satan and Lucifer and all of that, that's called dualism. That's from Persian theology, right? About demons and angels fighting against one another and hateful gods, hateful entities and good gods and all this stuff. Listen, I could go on and on. I want this to be a synopsis and a summary of multiple points of view that I have done videos of the past. Please research this yourself. There's a lot of information out there, please. Listen, there's more than 5,000 Greek manuscripts to this day that eventually comprise this one New Testament. A lot of them were in conflict, okay? A lot of them in conflict. I mean, you literally went from Koine Greek to Latin, okay? And then eventually to English and every other language on the planet. There are hundreds of different versions of the New Testament and thousands of other versions in different languages. There's only one version of Hebrew. And the same Torah that's in the synagogue in Australia, Melbourne, Australia, is the same Torah version that's in London, England. The same one that's in Charleston, South Carolina. The same one is in Silver Spring, Maryland. Yeah, in Kent Mill. Jewish Learning Center that I love, and my daughter's going to be going to school there very soon. Anyway, God bless you. Take care of yourself. I hope this has been enriching for you. Listen, I'm trying to keep this not so religious in this Torah Watchman edition, more historical, maybe apolitical. But listen, all the information is there for you to find yourself, and I encourage you, educate yourself, okay? So if you're a Christian, you want to evangelize the Jews, and you're joining Jews for Jesus, and you like Jews, but you don't like them so much, you want to convert, and you don't want to leave Jesus behind, listen, there's only one ketubah, there's only one marriage agreement between man and their creator God that breathed in their neshama, and that is the Torah and the Tanakh. It really is. I am married to God, and this is my legal contract for that, okay? Only one God. Shema means listen up, Israel. The Lord is one. The Lord is one. And Isaiah 43:11, God says very clearly, I, Hashem, the Lord your God, is your only salvation. Your only Yeshua. Listen, just read it to understand it and to love it. God bless you, and thank you for your time. I'll hope to see you real soon. Refuah Shalima for those people that don't feel too well. Always daven and pray for those people that are less fortunate than you. Give charity to the widows and orphans, those people that are less than you. Listen, God bless you. Always think about the needy. That's all I got to say about that. Take care.